Hi, welcome back everyone. In this video I'm going to show you my take on making Poison Spark Pathfinder. This build can do all content in the game from Ubers to 5 risk T17s while being a mid-budget of around 100 divines or even less. This build features Uber.cap for small arenas, great tankiness with the ability to tank Uber Shaper Slam, insane level of recovery, great speed and clear, so basically anything that you need. I don't think that I will be making a separate endgame version of the build, so I'm just gonna talk about that later in the video. But before we begin, I'm trying to stream on Twitch and YouTube, so if you want to see me play and have a chat, you're all welcome. Okay, now let's talk about the build. Originally, I saw this build idea almost a year ago from a guy with the name of the invincibru, and I'm going to leave the link for his video in the description below. I like the build a lot and decided to optimize it a little. So as usual, I'm going to talk about the key interactions of the build. This is kinda advanced build, so make sure to watch the video entirely so you don't miss anything important. There are two things that are making this build possible. The first one is inextricable fate boots. These boots have an interesting line. The damage inflicts, and please note that it said that damage inflicts and not have a chance to inflict poison, when enemy is affected by at least 3 grasping vines. So we don't care about chance to poison, but now we need to somehow inflict the grasping vines. The boots by itself are not enough, as practically no monsters in the game are staying at one place, so now we are going to utilize the second most important piece, and it's Vine Spike Cardinal Anointment. This anointment will allow us to inflict grasping vine on enemy while we have life flask enabled. So now we are required to have life flask. There are two possible ways of having constant life flask on you. The first one is using hybrid flask with the enduring mode, but it's not that great. And the second one, most obvious one, is to use Pathfinder with Master Surgeon passive. And since we are on the topic of ascendancy, the Pathfinder will be perfect one for this build. It will give us some necessary flask sustain, wither chance with increased wither effect, more poison damage and poison proliferation, so basically I believe that this is the best ascendancy for this build. Now let's talk about how to scale the damage. First, let's talk about the spark itself. You should know that spark has internal cooldown of 0.66 seconds. So it means that one cast of the spark can hit the enemy several times over its life duration. But please note that this is not shotgunning mechanic. Out of all sparks that you get from one cast, any of them can deal only one instance of the damage before getting on shared cooldown. So we want to increase the duration of the gem in order for it to hit the enemy several times. In this version I have around 6.2 seconds of duration, which will allow me to hit the target up to 9 times. This is an insane damage multiplier. But it's really dependent on the arena you're fighting. Spark prefers some closed maps like Toxic Sewer, where you will be able to hit with all 9 sparks. But in open map like Dunes, you won't hit the enemy more than like 2 to 3 times. To increase the quality of line and how it feels to play the spark, I'm using a combination of Widow Hailball with high projectile speed quiver. Without this combination, spark feels pretty terrible to play. You can clearly see the difference between those two. By the way, I will be saying it now, to play this build you're kinda required to have the Void Spark MTX, because it gets so hard on your eyes with the default one. So if you can buy it, I would totally recommend you to doing so. Okay, moving forward of how we scaling the damage. Since we are doing the damage with poison, we can scale the damage from increased chaos damage, damage over time multiplier, and elemental damage. Please note that the increased spell damage don't give any benefit for this build. But before we get any increased modifiers, we need to get some flat damage to the spark. So I'm using a combination of flat damage from the ring, quiver, anger aura, and flame wall. Also I'm using a new unique ring that was introduced this league and its betrayal sting. This ring will give us 48% more damage, so yeah, it's kinda insane. Then, for even more damage, I'm using Soul Ascension gloves. These gloves will grant us insane amount of increased cast speed, and with the combination of new Righteous Fire Gem, which grants more cast speed, we can reach insane amount of cast per second. And the last important piece of the damage, Large Cluster with a 35% increased effect and cast speed. And if I'm not forgetting, this should be it when it comes to the damage. But now we have another problem. Since we are casting so many sparks each second, you can imagine the Manacost. It's pretty much impossible to sustain it without the use of Replica Sorrow of the Divine Flask, which will grant us Eldritch Battery and recover energy shield with the life as well. So now our life flask serves as a mana flask as well. Okay, now let's talk about the survivability. Let's start with the recovery. I believe that I don't need to say a lot about recovery, because we are using life flask, which give us something like 3.5k life per second, and with the combination of Defiance Destiny Amulet, we won't die even from hundreds of weak monsters. Okay, let's move forward to the mitigation. I'm using a combination of Doppelganger, Unique Body Armor and Divine Flesh. This way I'm converting 50% of elemental damage to chaos damage, and it gets reduced by the body armor. This is an extremely great way of scaling elemental defense because of the penetration from the map modes or from shaper bows. Next, I'm using a combination of Nature Patience, Passion Stone, Arctic Armor, Petrified Blood, Endurance Charges from the Endurance Composure cluster, and some Pantheons. Also, we are crit immune from the Poison Mastery. It's not 100% reliable, but it's better than nothing. Combining everything above will allow you to become extremely tanky. You will be able to tank Shaper Uber Slam, stand in the Shaper Beam, tank almost anything in the game. And I'm not even saying anything about Immortal Cowl and Frost Shield, which will make you practically immortal. Since we have 4 Enduro charges with high skill effect duration and use a new Rune Guard for increased duration, Immortal Cowl lasts around 6 seconds, which is extremely long. Well, I think that this is it when it comes to the main part of the build. Now let's quickly get over the gear and the rest of the build. For the weapon, I'm using Widow Hail with faster projectile corruption. This is not required, but you will feel much better with it. If you are not going to buy a bow with the corruption, aim for 250%. If you are going to buy with the corruption, anything higher than 240 should feel fine. For the quiver, I'm using high projectile speed one with flat damage, pierce, chaos resistance, and some frenzy charge generation. This is pretty easy quiver to craft and will cost you on average around 15 divines. First, you need to buy fractured feather quiver with T1 projectile speed. Ideally, the quiver should be item level 82. Higher is alright, lower is not. Then you spam Essences of Insanity for pierce until you hit tier 2 or higher life. Tier 1 life is around 1 in 29 attempts. Then we need to have an open prefix and suffix. Either annul or use Beast to remove prefix. Then lock prefixes and use Veiled Chaos Orb and hope to get Veiled prefix. Then just unveil it and select any flat damage. Then lock prefixes again and reforge Chaos in order to get Chaos resistance. If you get low tier, you can just redo the last step until you hit high enough Chaos resistance. Then finish the craft with crafty chance to get frenzy charges on crit. We don't have high crit chance, but with the amount of projectiles we have, it's not really a big problem at all. For the helmet, I'm using helmet with fracture suppress, necessary intelligence and reservation, life and additional pierce. For the eldritch, I'm using reservation and cast speed. This is pretty easy helmet to craft. You need to buy fractured dexterity base with at least 10% spell suppression, but be wary of the dexterity requirements, since we are low on the dexterity. Then just spam Essences of Loathing until you hit intelligence. Depending on your clusters, tier 3 might be enough. Always check POB for attribute requirements. Then just lock suffixes and reforge life. Finish the craft with a pierce and exhaust slam or something. Body armor is doppelganger with 40% reduced damage and some good corruption. The amulet is Defiance with anointment. Depending on the rest of the gear, you might don't care about the resistance roll, so just focus on getting high recovery. Don't forget to catalyst it later. For the ring, I'm using Betrayal Sting with max roll for poison damage and low roll for the resistances. Again, don't forget to catalyst it. Other ring is a rare ruby ring with life, flat damage, life gain on hit, cast speed, ORS and recoup. This is pretty hard ring to craft, so I'd probably recommend buying the base from the market. For my version, the base has to be ruby, because I'm lacking fire resistance from the rest of the gear. Then there are several stats of potential suffixes you want. If you don't like any other resistance, you might wanna spam Essences of Rage until you hit T1 recoup. Then we need to have an open suffix and prefix. Annul if you need. Lock suffixes and reforge caster to get increased cast speed. Or if you like resistances, you might wanna spam Essences of Wrath until you hit T1 or resistance. Then do the same steps for the cast speed. Or it would be even better if you could buy the base with 2 required suffixes and reforge for the cast speed. Now, for the prefixes, you just lock suffixes, reforge life until you hit high enough tier, then use Shaper Exalted Orb and pray to hit the life gain on hit, and finish the craft with a flat damage. Personally, I just bought the base with all resistances and recoup and used the method I just said above for the rest of the craft. Now moving forward with the gloves. The gloves are Soul Ascension with Despair Corruption. The Despair is kinda mandatory, so just focus on getting it, then try to get as high soul as you can. Cast speed is not necessary at all and was just lucky to snipe the pair for really cheap. For the boots, Inextricable Fate with +1 to Endurance Charges Corruption. The belt is Tidal's Time. You need to buy 3 charges for utility and at least 2 for Life Flask. Don't forget to catalyst it. For the Life Flask, I'm using high quality Divine Flask. It's pretty easy to craft them with alteration, so we need to have tier 1 increased recovery and any tier of the crafted blood immunity. Then Replica Sorrow of Divine, Bismuth Flask, Quartz Flask, and Silver Flask. All of them with T1 increased effect and low reduced duration. For the suffixes, we are using additional elemental resistance, chance to avoid shock, and reduced effect of curses. And now, before we move to the 3 and the gems, a little tip for you guys. If you have slow build, you can easily use weapon swap to increase the speed of your character. I'm using a one-handed weapon with high attack speed per second and Peripetei shield with high movement speed and attack speed. Then I'm linking shield charge with enhance and fast attack supports, and in the shield I'm just leveling enlightenments. Using this weapon swap allows me to run extremely fast when I need. Using this combination helps me to finish some maps in less than a minute. Well, let's talk about the passive tree and the Jivus now. This tree focuses on getting some life, spell suppression, skill effect duration, some elemental damage, poison damage, an aura effect with reservation, chaos multi, and elemental overload. Also, don't forget to use as much life recovery tattoos as you can. And again, check your attribute requirements for the build in calculation tab. Now, moving forward to the jewels, this build has quite a lot of them. For the big cluster, I'm using large cluster with 35% increased effect, cast speed, life, and aura resistance. Please note that you have to use either elemental damage base or lightning damage base or even fire damage base. Spell damage does nothing for this build. Then one medium flask cluster with Spite Concussion and Brew Potency, and some necessary intelligence. For the small cluster, I'm using cluster with 2 passives. We need to have Enduring Composure and a lot of intelligence, strength and life. Again, depending on the rolls on this jewel, you might need to have higher or lower T of all intelligence on the helmet. Natural Affinity, then Large Trader Hope in this socket, Light of the Mini with chaos damage in this socket, a Natural Instinct for more cast speed, life, intelligence, and this Watcher. About the Watcher. Depending on the type of the content you want to run, you might don't need this Watcher. I'm going to talk about 5 risk scarab later. If you want to have budget version, just get malevolent.multi and that's it. Impossible Escape for CI with some good passives near it. Storm Shroud for ailment immunity. And finally, Glorious Vanity with some good small passives as well. Okay, now let's talk about the gems. Don't forget to change the levels of some gems according to your attribute requirements. In the offhand, shield chart with faster attacks and enhance. In the body armor, aura setup with Flesh and Stone, Discipline, Arctic Armor, Enlightenment level 4, Petrified Blood level 8, and Anger. In the helmet, defense cast when damage taken setup with Immortal Call and Frost Shield, linked with more duration support. In the gloves, Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion and Withering Stab linked with Automation and Flame Wall. You might wanna try to use Pyromines instead. I'm going to talk about it in the higher budget version instead. Then, main damaging setup in the bow. Spark of the Nova, Awaken Unbound Ailments, Spell Echo, Awaken Deadly Ailments, Awaken Elefocus, and Efficacy. Note the level 5 of the Awakening Gems gives a lot of damage, so try to get them level 5. Little tip, you can always buy level 1 Awaken Gem and level it up using the Beastcraft. Then, Crossbelicon Wintry with faster casting and precision with Arrogance. Depending on the Watcher, you might want to swap precision for Vitality. We are using it level 1 in order for us to get bonuses from the Aura Mastery and the Watchers. And last but not least, Mercenary. I'm using a Toxicologist Mercenary with double Aura, Malevolence, and Thrathran Agility. I have the gear set ready in the POB, but I'm not going to talk about the Merc's gear and why I decided to use it. If you want to hear a bit of explanation why I'm using such uniques, then you can check the clip on my Twitch channel. Just type !Merc in the chat and you'll get the link to the clip. And this is it when it comes to the medium budget gear. Depending on the market, you might buy everything for less than 50 divines, but I would say that you have to be ready to spend closer to 100 or even more after the release of the video. Now let's talk about how I am able to run 5 risk scarab with this build. There are only 2 mods that will break the build entirely. Chance to avoid poison and reduce recovery rate. Reduce flask charges gained will make it feel pretty bad, but it's alright. You can run any of them if you get them from the risk scarab, because the mods from the risk scarab are not amplified by the Atlas tree. Okay, we cannot do anything about the chance to avoid poison, but what about the recovery and the flasks? To solve the flask problem, I'm using Watchers with gain flask charges on critical strike. Since we are casting so many sparks, even with such low crit chance is pretty reliable way of gaining flask charges. What about the recovery then? To solve this problem, I'm using Watchers again. The mod I'm talking about is ES gain on hit. So if you want to run all mods, you are kinda required to run Precision and Discipline Watchers. If you manage to get Malevolence.multi, it would be best in slot. Moving forward with the Reflect. For the Reflect, I'm using Reflect Pantheon and Elemental Mastery. And this is pretty much it when it comes to the 5 risk scarab farming. All other mods are not really a problem for this build. Don't expect this build to run triple physical as extra, minus max res and reduce aura effect, as practically no builds in this game can run this combination. Other than that, it should be pretty good to run anything. Okay, now let's talk about higher budget version. For this version we are going to change a couple of things. First, we are going to swap Quartz Flask with the resistance suffix for Progenesis. In order to fix missing resistance, just get better Defiance and Cluster Jewel. To fix the suppression missing, swap recovery tattoos with the suppression ones. Then the helmet. We are going to use Blizzard Crown instead. To craft this helmet, spam Essences of Loathing until you hit T1 suppression or high intelligence, and then try to exalt slam the other one. Then lock suffixes and reforge life and use Shaper Exalted Orb and finish the craft. But since we no longer have Reservation Implicit and Intelligence, we need to recraft the ring and get +1 to Socketed Gem Body Armor in order to boost the level of Enlightenment so that we have a mana for Reservation. To craft the ring, spam Essence of Delirium until you hit tier 1 all resistances. And open prefix and suffix. Lock suffixes and reforge caster. Then lock suffixes again and reforge life. Lock suffixes again, use Veiled Exalted Orb, craft mana, unveil flat damage and Elder Slam and pray to hit life on gain a hit. Then we can get some good corruption on a belt like cast speed or rarity or all resistances. Also we are going to craft a new quiver. Buy the same item level 82 feather quiver, but without corruption this time. The prefixes are the same, spam essences until T1 life, lock prefixes, use Veiled Chaos Orb, unveil flat damage. Then lock prefixes again and reforge speed and hope to get T1 projectile speed. Then craft cannot roll attack modifiers and use Hunter's Exalted Orb in order to get guaranteed chance to poison and increase poison damage. And finish the craft with chance to get Frenzy Charge on critical. And now optional Pyroclast Mines. You might swap faster casting from the Frostblink for the Pyroclast Mines of Sabotage. It should be linked with the Arrogance. Then get some passives on a tree to make the mines immune. It's not really worth it for small boss arena or T17 maps, where you will be dot cap regarding of anything because of the spark bounces, but for bigger arena it might be worth it. Maybe even swap Frostblink entirely for Swift Assembly so that you can get your mine faster. But honestly, I don't know, it's kinda feels clunky to play, so not really recommend it. Well, this is it guys. I enjoyed the build quite a lot and I know for sure that I will come back at it once again in the future. Maybe more expensive original Seer version, but I don't know. I'm already in the process of making my next build. I'm not gonna spoil a lot and just gonna say one thing. Get your sunglasses ready. If you like the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you would like to see me play live and have a chat, don't forget to follow me on Twitch and YouTube. If you want to support me financially, there are links in the description below. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!